Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome, everybody. All right, let's see who's in. Okay, we've got Cupie, of course. Welcome, Cupie. Gabrielle Filion was first. Sean Allen, Saturday morning. Bill M.E., Kilcook Monty. Kai Lucas Zachary. Dark Wolf's Den, Sweet Joy, Orlando Hernandez. I think that's everybody that's talked so far. Everybody. All right, so this is the first one, and this is from Keill1, Keill1, commenter on the channel. This image supposedly was taken with a little, like 8-inch, I think it was, little telescope attached to a cell phone. Here's what's weird for me is that Saturn's rings are so obvious here, and this is the same thing that Keill was saying, or Kyle, however you say it. If I remember way back, I remember Saturn's rings being very hard to see. And if I look way back in my memory, I actually do remember when they were saying that for a while they really weren't sure about the validity of Saturn's rings because they were hard to see. But once you get up close, you could really, the orbiters or whatever spaceships they sent out were able to get a good look at them, and they were legit. So thinking way back now, I kind of wonder if that was them maybe first emerging way back. It was a long time ago, so you probably have to be kind of old. But I wonder now, maybe there was no rings, and then there was a theory that there were rings, and then, we found the rings. And, well, now they're like really obvious. So it is an ME for me. I don't ever remember seeing a image that clear. And this here is supposed to be the moon. So they're saying it's a conjunction in that it looks like the Saturn is touching the moon. But anyway, just sort of weird. Have I heard of Dolores Cannon? Oh, yes. That's kind of an interesting one. I didn't hear about her until after I learned of the ME. She talks about timelines and stuff like that, so it's definitely very interesting. Although a lot of us in the community on Redcon wonder if she also is an ME, because even people who were heavily into New Age stuff, a lot of them never heard of her before just the last few years. So it might be that she's just this timeline. Love you all, Eva, but fake space and flat Earth clears up a lot. I'm like I said before, I'm not sold on flat Earth. I'm just not sold on globe Earth either. I just don't think there's only two options. I don't think the two options are globe Earth or flat Earth. I think there are other options. I don't think the only explanation for things changing in the NASA and NASA weird glitches and fishy stuff is that we're a flat Earth. There's like a whole bunch of other possible explanations. Mandela, just them being lazy bums. There's so many other things. So I'm keeping my options open at this point for space and all that stuff. Also, a lot of things that are currently evidence for flat Earth, I don't think even existed in my old timeline. So that makes me really suspicious about it too. Like, for instance, I know it's a big thing about flat Earth that they're saying that you can see too far without the curve of the Earth. One thing I did notice several years ago was that I could suddenly see mountains a lot further off. Like there was like one set of mountains I used to see on the horizon, and then suddenly I noticed I could see more mountains behind that, and then more mountains behind that. There was just I had never been able to see mountains that far back before. You just saw that one set. So at the time, I kind of thought, well, did those other mountains get higher, and that's why they're now peaking above the ones in front. But I don't know. Maybe that's now related to how images are rendered to our eyes now, and might have something to do with this flat Earth stuff. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. There's another explanation that it could be a simulated reality. That happens to be one of my favorite ones. You know, if you're on World of Warcraft, is the world that you're on when you're playing that game, is it flat or round? It's neither. It's just a simulated reality rendered to your eyes. So, all right. Share the pizza. Yeah, I would like some pizza also. Of course, pizza is supposed to be slang for some porn thing, according to some. So you got to watch you when you use that word now. At least I think I'm still human. Far as I know, I'm still human, whatever that is. All right. Also, did not have a hexagon on the top. Yes, agreed. That is very suspicious, the hexagon. You have to resolve it in order to know what's a Mandela and what's not. See, here's the thing. If NASA is trying to just lie to us, there would be no reason for them to keep changing the story. They would stick with it. Um, but the video, all the old NASA video has changed. Um, than what I remember, just the way, even if you look at the old space video, it's not at all like I remember. The things that are in it aren't what I remember. So if NASA was just trying to lie to us and all the changes were NASA lies, that would make no sense because you wouldn't keep flipping around your story over and over again constantly and saying first it's this and it's this. If you're trying to lie, you'd keep your lie cohesive. At least attempt to do so. You wouldn't be blatantly changing your story every 3 or 4 years. That would be ridiculous. But the ME does that, and we've seen that. So that's why I think that a lot of the changes are probably ME related. Work Dove is in, yay! Brian Staveley. NASA lies and Mandela effects all together. See, I'm just wondering how much, if any, reality is real. I mean, maybe NASA's not real, but maybe, the rendering, large chunks of it besides NASA aren't real. You've got the whole issue, are there non-player characters? I mean, maybe this is really a lot like a video game, and a lot of the players we see, government, those things, maybe they're just projections. Projections of our inner thoughts, our inner fears. It's really hard to say. I mean, I lean more towards that now after seeing how things just change. It would be easy for them to change if it was just a video game. The programmers could easily go, oop, let's change the plot line now. I saw an amazing sun dog. I assume you mean sun dog yesterday. Looked like a second sun. I don't remember sun dogs from my old childhood. Yeah, that showed up a couple years ago, and at first they were just the rings. But now the rings around the sun will have like little second suns and four suns, and it's getting crazy, the sun dog business. Let's see. Check out some of the sun dogs. I mean, it used to be just that one thing, but I mean, there's all these rules to it. So there's the second and third suns. But see, now you can get like all this business where there's more and more and then this and that. And then I was trying to study on it, but it's kind of complicated. If it's this and that, there's all these rules about, see, look how many suns are reflected there. There's 2 rings, multiple suns. It's getting all psycho. Look at that one. It's gotten crazy. New Mexico. See, when they first said it had to be like really cold, and you didn't get very many sun dogs unless it was in the, Arctic or Antarctic, the really freezing frost particles. And now it's New Mexico has them. So that the original storyline is already. Oh, what, we got colored sun dogs now? Colored sun dogs, what you know? Double sun dog. So, colors are in there now. Bird sun dog. That's all new, actually. I didn't see those colors before. Last time I checked. Ooh, look at that one. Studley. This is one it's hard to keep up with. It's constantly adding more complexity. Sun dogs. It looks like they're going to have colors now. Halo sundogs, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, that was off the original storyline. All right, so my argument, and I agree with Keel, is that didn't used to be able to see the rings that well. All right. Now this one. Now these blue eyes are fake, so ignore that. But there is some interesting stuff on here. All right, this one is from Julie Holcomb, and we're going to have a whole bunch from her. She's taking Bob Robertson's place this time. All right, the genes of this tribe carry a DNA of a third unknown human species. They've done a lot of DNA research on the various tribes, even decades ago, so I find it a little suspicious that suddenly this comes out. I've never even heard of these Melanesia. I've heard of Micronesia. I've not heard of Melanesia. Interesting term there, because melanistic usually means you have like a dark skin. Now, new evidence found by scientists started to suggest that the people living on the islands of Melanesia could have human DNA the world has never seen. Does not come from Neanderthal nor Denisovan, which are the two ancient species most closely relate to humans. Scientists believe they come from a new, undiscovered species that derive from South Pacific, northeast of Australia. Okay, so this is an interesting story, and one thing interesting about these Melanesians, if you look them up, one thing quite common, they don't tend to have neon blue eyes, but they do tend to have a lot of people, and they're basically a very dark-skinned race, but they have that curly hair that black people have, but it's blonde, and this is natural. They're not dyeing this. They have naturally blonde hair, even though dark skin. Never heard of that. It's obviously a very striking look. Look, this batch. I mean, this one has pretty reddish hair. A lot of these are quite red. When you see it red, you might think, oh, it's sun damage. But this girl's hair is just a little too red to blame on sun damage. And these peoples just have a different kind of hair. Look at that. A pretty big bunch of them have blonde. Look at all that blonde hair. There's a lot of them. Traces of long-lost human cousins may be hiding in modern people's DNA. I've never seen, I know that we're having a lot of color, different kinds of coloration in humans, but I think I would have remembered if there's a race of black people basically with really light colored hair. It's just really interesting looking. Some of them have really neat red hair. It's just such a striking look, too. I saw a few and I thought maybe they were really old, but then I saw the kids. I'm like, These are not dyed. These are natural. That just looks like a wig, but nope. Nope, that's what they look like. So anyways, I just thought that was really interesting. So they're going to have this whole DNA story, and they have that also. So I don't know, we're going to find that the third race of humans are bunch of blondies or something. I guess we'll find out. All right, so this is exaggerated. They don't have neon blue eyes, but all right, so interesting. All right, more from Julie Holcomb. New mechanism of bone growth discovered. Researchers report that bone growth in mice takes place in accordance with the same principles as when new cells are constantly produced in blood, skin, and other tissue. So basically that means, historically they would say that once your bones are grown, they have limited ability to continue to grow. They could heal, but they wouldn't, grow. There's limited. But now they're saying basically that they can keep on growing, and replicating just like blood, skin, and other tissue. This contradicts the previous understanding that bone growth depends on a finite number of gradually consumed progenitor cells. So basically, they're throwing out all the other decades of research and going, oops, never mind. So I think we've seen that before. Very common tendency with the ME here. Another one, this one was, let's see, link between brain and your bones. They were saying if you're depressed, you have also, there's a link between depression and osteoporosis, which is interesting. Depressed people tend to have lower bone density, and it's traced to lack of protein called interleukin-1. Okay, so they're saying that this was known, and they didn't know the link. I've never heard of this before. I've actually been quite interested in how depression and attitude influence health, and I never saw hide nor hair of this previously. It was mostly just a lifespan. There wasn't a lot of hard evidence for it, but... All right, this is another one. Scientists discovered new blood vessels in bone. So they're describing a bunch of blood vessels. Now think about it. When you break your bone, does blood shoot out of your bone? No. On my old timeline, the bone did not have blood vessels. Now they're saying it does. So very interesting. These are all from Julie Holcomb. Just kind of a string of weird, what do you call it? Just a string of weird health-related ones. All right, this one flip-flops all over the place. New forensic analysis indicates bones were Amelia Earhart's. So they had recently, there was some spiel that they found some bones on an island. I don't remember them having found those, but supposedly they found them a long time ago. I just heard about that like a year ago. And then they're saying that, oh no, the bones were from a man. Well, now they're saying, oh no, all that analysis was wrong, and the bones were probably from 1 out of 100 that it was from Amelia Earhart now, because they have the old measurements, I guess. I don't know why they can't do DNA on it. Maybe do they not have the bones? It wasn't really clear here. But this flip-flop is just weird. I mean, really, were they so stupid that they could not tell a man's bones from a woman's bones? This was not that. And she's not like some big old buff burly man either. I mean, she's not one of those huge Amazonian-looking women. So, the Emmy just flip-flops all the time. It just, oh, that was wrong. I meant this. Oh, I mean that. Actually, that was all wrong, and now I mean the reverse. So, anyway, I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of weird stuff with Amelia. A lot of people remember her having a D in her name, Earhart with H-A-R-D-T. I'm one of those people. There's no real reason for there to be a D in there, so there's no real reason for me to remember a D, because it was just a kind of a hassle spelling issue with her name. So that's one. Also, and this says it here, Earhart was the first female aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Except for in this timeline, she has a navigator named Fred Noonan. So she's not a solo aviator if she's got Fred Noonan in there with her. My timeline, she was actually a solo aviator by her little old self. There was no aviator or navigator. The whole thing is just weird. So, I don't know. So there's a two with her. So I guess this mystery will flip-flop around a few more times. All right. I'm going to see what you guys are all talking about. Yeah, it looks like it crashed. I don't see. Unless nobody said anything for like 10 minutes. All right, here we go. There we go. Looks like we'll get that chat back and see what everybody's been up to. Okay. So I'm waiting for the chat to show up. Let's see, who came up with this one? So all those others were Julie Holcomb, including the Earhart one. Forensic analysis, Amelia. Okay, Mudfloods one. This one is from Thomas Larson. He pointed out this video. Actually, he pointed out something else in this video, but I did notice this part. This is, I guess, a flood that happened in Switzerland not super long ago. But what was really interesting is it just looks very mud floody. I'm going to play a little piece of it. So this is supposed to be like a flood, but it's like this weird mud. And it even blops up like it's just weird. It's not ordinary water, but it's not really mud. And it just really reminded me of the whole mud flood thing. And I've also had on here before how now when there's earthquakes, a lot of weird mud and water pushes up, and the buildings sink a lot. That just wasn't the case in my old timeline. They would shake. They would say that there was like a jello, but now when it's liquefaction, it's almost like really a liquid. You do sink in, and a lot of water bulges out and mud. So I'm wondering if that's kind of setting the stage for this whole mud flood storyline. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, lots of chit chats. Australian Aborigines have blonde hair as children. Not in my old timeline. Even non-affected have mentioned the clouds look lower. Yep. The other thing I've kind of noticed is also beyond that you can really see clouds at night is used to be fog would come down and it was sort of diffuse and fog like. You might go in and out of it, but the edges were sort of diffuse. What I've seen lately is that there'll be this cloud and it'll be like on the ground almost, and you can actually just see the edges of it. I mean, you could just see right where it ends and starts. Like it's just more delineated than it ever was before. I just saw that like last week. It was weird. I've seen some African tribes with blue eyes and blonde hair. Just in the last 2 years, I have seen some blondes, and they were saying it was Aztec. Some of the old Aztec bloodlines had a little bit of a light, like it would be sort of Mexican-looking faces and light hair. And it was red, though. It was more like a reddish. It wasn't blondie, blonde. So my old timeline, that was the first one I heard of, and that was maybe 5-6 years ago. Before that, no. If you were dark, you had dark hair, period. There wasn't even albinos that far back. That's more than the last 2-3 years, too, that albino African Americans, albino various humans. Yeah, some people are saying the clouds low are kind of an old ME. Yes, but I think they're getting more low. Also, and more weird. They're just it's ongoing. Just like the time getting faster. I really feel like about a month ago or so, a few weeks ago, we lost. It just seems like there's another hour or two missing out of the day. Um, it just seems like we've crunched down even further. Aircraft seem to fly lower. I haven't really seen that personally, but I'm not currently on a main. I'm not on a regular commercial flight path, but I am near a freeway that the military uses as they fly along it a lot, and I haven't seen any differences since I moved here as far as height. I do think that the all the military craft look quite different, just smaller wings, basically. Distance is getting closer. A lot of people talk about shorter flights. Yeah, I just wish that the post office would drop their prices, since, as far as I'm concerned, they have less distance. It seems like airfares have gone down, but post office keeps jacking it up every year. This is actually a new chat. No more repays of your past. Um, I don't think any chats are repeats of other chats. Chanty Moody remembers the black people with blonde hair, tribes that keep to themselves. No, I don't know. They didn't say anything about the Melanesians. And it's a pretty big bunch of peeps, too. It's not like some little puny Picayune tribe. Predominant inhabitants of Melanesia. Let's see. Let's just read. A wide area of New Guinea as far east as the islands of Vanuatu and Fiji. Most speak either one of the many languages of the Austronesian language family. Now, New Guinea, let's see. That is one of the islands that's really gotten a lot bigger over there by Australia. Yeah, Papua New Guinea it's got a lot bigger, and I suspect that maybe these Melanesians have come with that. I mean, look, compared to Australia, it's kind of cranking now. Okay, spread out. There we go. Now, Australia used to be way out by itself, but Papua New Guinea was way smaller than that. Indonesia was kind of the biggest around. So I suspect that these peoples have maybe come on top of the new land here. All right, so these are wide-ranging peoples. Likely the ancestors of the present-day Papuan people migrating from Southeast Asia. Study found a high rate of genetic differentiation diversity among the group living within the Melanesian islands, with the people not only distinguished between the islands but also by the languages, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it's not incidence of blonde hair. Let's check this. Blonde hair is rare in native populations outside of Europe, Central Asia, North Africa. It evolved independently in Melanesia, where Melanesians of some islands, along with some indigenous Australians, are one of the few groups of non-Caucasian people who have blonde hair. This has been traced to an allele of TYRP1, unique of these people. It is not the same gene that causes blonde hair in Caucasians. As with blonde hair that arose in Europe and parts of Asia, incidence of blondness is more common in children than adults. Interesting. Okay. Seems like this is just spreading then. So apparently it's the same gene that was in the Australians. That was not in my old timeline. I just love that whole hair color, eye color thing. I've studied it. It just wasn't there. Eastern Indonesia, New Guinea, surrounding islands. There's a lot of people. Australia, the total population of Torres Strait Islanders or Melanesian people was estimated 30 June of 2000 to be 63,000. So 63,000 Melanesians in Australia. Not a small batch of people. Now, it might have started that way because that is how the Emmy likes to work. All right, we've already done this one. We did that one. They will tell us she was really a man. So many seem to be. The thing is that men and women just look more similar in this timeline. It's very common now for me to see people on TV and not know. And even myself, I definitely do not look as feminine as I used to. I think that is maybe breeding a lot of this paranoia. Is people are seeing that it's hard to tell. They're assuming all kinds of things, but I see it in my own face, and I know that I'm female. And I've seen it in other people. So it's the change that men are looking more like women, and women are looking more like men. If you want to read more into it, I guess you can, but I mean, at the basic level, it's hard to tell now. It's just hard to tell. Women are way more buff. Their face has gotten more masculine. Men's faces have gotten more feminine. It's, I mean, it doesn't mean they're cross dressers if they look like a man anymore. And it doesn't mean they're cross dressers if they look like a woman, because that's the new genetics for whatever reason. I have the same hair texture as those Melanesian people, although my hair is naturally almost black now. It was blonde when I was a child. Huh, well, maybe you have a little bit of that third race of human in you. You may also, you are probably closer to this timeline than I was, because you definitely, you see like half the Emmys. You don't see them all. So I don't think, you probably were not at all in my original timeline. You were like halfway here already. Well, is the heart getting enlarged, though? That's an important bit. Oh, yeah, the heart's way bigger than it used to be. I think it makes people more emotional thinkers than logical thinkers and easier to control. I don't know on that. Um, they're definitely different. The millennials, though, I would not say they're easy to control. They're, on average, they're more emotional, but I don't think they're easier to control. They want what they want. They don't want to conform to standards like at the workplace, those kind of things. So I'm not buying they're easier to control. Shook is something the kids say here, AK slang. Yeah, well, every generation has their slang. I know I was out of high school like 2, 3 years. They already had a whole new batch of slang. The funny one is yeet, Yeet. That one doesn't translate very well, but it makes me laugh. All right, so we got lots more stuff actually to cover. You got like half done. Bone. Oh. There's one more I forgot from Thomas Larson. All right. All right, this is what Thomas Larson was originally pointing out to me in that video I showed. There's a whole, that guy talks about a whole bunch of different things. This one is weird. So apparently, this wasn't in my timeline, but if you've ever dissected a fish, frog, snake, or turtle, you may have noticed their hearts will continue to beat after being removed from the body. Well, a few minutes, right? No, they're talking hours. Like for turtles, apparently a turtle heartbeat will just beat outside for, look at that, for hours. They're saying it'll beat like that for hours. Creepy. I have to have something creepy in every live stream. So that's today's. So they're saying, oh, it's because the beating of the heart is not regulated by the brain. It's regulated by the heart itself. So when you cut it off from the brain, it could still beat. But it used to be that it would freaking die because you cut it off from the blood supply and all of its oxygen supply, and all the cells would croak. That was why it would stop beating, not because the brain was cut off. It's because it had no anything to keep it going. Well, that's why it's so creepy that it would beat for like hours. For this reason, the heart that is removed from the body doesn't stop beating instantly. See, they're totally missing the whole point. The whole point was that it stopped beating because it had no blood supply, oxygen, or any of that other business. So they're saying that these animals, it can beat a long time. I think that kind of leaves it open for humans eventually, too. I've been reading a lot now about studies suggesting that humans could be partially revived, like a half hour after death. Brain activity doesn't die as fast as we thought. Yam, yam, yam. So I think that it's really setting the stage for basically people to be able to be revived a long time after death. A half hour, an hour. I think we're getting there. Anyway, so super creepy. That was from Thomas Larson. All right, got that one. All right, this one was from Matt Taylor. I agree with this one. He just mentioned something. But basically, he's saying that he noticed that the space between the fleshy part of your finger and your nail part just seems bigger. And I agree with that because I remember if you had dirt there, it wasn't that easy to get out before. You had to really get something and get it out. And now I can just go one time with another fingernail and I got it's all out. And I don't remember just being able to look down in there. I just think that the fingernail used to be mashed more onto the finger. It's kind of a little bitty thing, and I did not think of it, but I had noticed without really thinking about it that I could get the dirt out really easy now. It just takes like a second to clean out those fingernails now. And it used to be kind of a chore, and I had to make sure I didn't jam something in there too hard and poke the skin under there and stuff. That would have been a popular science project. Yeah, really, can you imagine? I mean, if you could just do fish, I mean, I've had on other videos where fish keep jumping for like a half hour after they're dead and stuff. I wasn't an extensive fisherman, but I caught my share of fish and skinned them, and they never bounced around after I cut the head off. That was it. I don't think I look too different, but I'm from a different timeline. But I am mixed race, so I have unusual genes. I look eclectic in every timeline. Yeah, well, the thing is, the skull is quite different. I don't think anybody can really look the same because you've got different cheekbones now. The way the neck attaches is different. At least for a lot of us, we've noticed those changes. But they're gradual. So you look in the mirror every day, it's a little bit easy to miss them. It's like how you grow a wrinkle, you don't just go look in the mirror and go, there's a wrinkle. It's like first it's just a little dent and you barely notice, and then over the years it becomes a wrinkle. Well, that's how the ME works. It's just very sneaky like that. It's like growing wrinkles. It takes a couple years to get a wrinkle. The ME does the same thing with the new cheekbones. Me too, Eva. Fish usually lasts for a minute, then dead. Yep. I mean, there's a little bit of pouncing around, but pretty much by the time you've got that tail and you're scraping off those scales, it is not moving. And the thing was when you fish is you hook them under the water so they're live because you don't want them to get bad while you're still fishing. So, when you go to clean them, they were live just a minute ago, basically. And my mom would take catfish and she would just put them in the bathtub In those days, they didn't have chloramine chemicals all in the water, so you could just run water and throw the catfish in the tub, and they would just stay in there swimming around until we were ready to eat them. I think one time they were in there like 3 days until she was uh, feeling less lazy and ready to clean them. They now have an increase in recommended length of fish caught in the lakes. Yeah, that does not surprise me. That's from Lord Frybread. You know, everything's bigger now. I'm sure the fish are. What about the moonfish? Moonfish are new for me. Let's see. Those are those flat things, aren't they? Moonfish. Let me just make sure that I know what we're talking about. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, Opa. I don't think I had those. At least not in that size. That's not what I was thinking of, but I've just seen a lot of images of those the last like month. Okay, this is what I'm thinking of when I think of moonfish. Okay, those are also a moonfish. All right. The first one, this I think was the first one I saw, but he didn't have this like his tail wasn't all like a skirt when it originally came. He was more like these other moonfish. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm getting it straightened out. These things then are new versions of these things. This was the original one. Now we've got these. So yeah, no, these giant flatfish, I didn't have those. Those just showed. They look like they're missing most of their body. Those are weird things. These guys actually look more normal, but they're huge. Ugh, let's go back. I mean, look at that thing, giant moonfish. You know, if you saw that and it was just, you know, a little fish, he just looks like kind of like a perch or something, but and these ones have tails, so they're not nearly as weird looking. But yeah, I don't remember those. I definitely don't remember these tailless things. If you want to call that a tail. They're looking weirder too. When they first came out, they didn't have like the weird skirt on them I've already mentioned. There's kind of a weird bump here now on them. They're definitely more. See, this head bump wasn't on there at the first, and this line here, and then the jaggedies weren't, and this weird gill thing wasn't on there. They were more plain in the body. I've been watching these guys change. All right, so yeah, moonfish. Old news for old Emmy moonfish, but like I said, these guys have been making the rounds the last few weeks. I don't remember those at all. Look at how bright they are, too. Capturing fingernails. All right, half done. All right, you know I have to have spiders in every video, so here we go. So apparently Australia has a spider season now. I think it was the spring. They all come out and they make webs and it looks like snow in certain parts of Australia. Now I've seen these images before in the last few years, but the first time this image happened, it was like this freak occurrence. And people were all confused. Why did all the spiders suddenly make webs? Ooh, and then, oh, it's this rare phenomena that happens once in a blue moon because who knows why. And I was like, that's pretty weird. Well, now it's a season. It happens like every year. It's Australian spider season, where they all just make like snow on the ground. So, yep, Australia. You get all the weird stuff over there. Spiderweb Park. Look at that. Leave it to Australia. Oh, Greece has got them too. I totally go. Anyway, so you got a season now. All right, this one's a really weird one. You know, we had chickens. I studied chickens a lot. I guess it's always possible I didn't know about this, but it's weird. So, you can hypnotize a chicken. This video shows you how. I'm not going to play the whole thing because I might get a copyright. But basically, you've got this. If you go to this video, and it's basically chickens can be hypnotized on r/WTF. So he's going to hold this chicken, and he's going to, now it's squirming and stuff, and he's going to hold its head. So it's kind of pissed off right now, and he's holding its head, and he's going to draw this line sticking out. And then once he draws the line, he lets go of the chicken, and it doesn't budge. It just sits there. It's like it's dead or something. It's like it's stoned. He'll let go of the chicken, and he'll even move its legs and stuff, and it won't really do anything. So then finally, let's see, somewhere down the line, they wipe out the... So he's still stoned. And they said it'll stay there for a long time. So now he's going to wipe out this line that he drew. And you'll see the chicken snap. So he wipes out the line. And then once the line is wiped out, the chicken bites him and flies off. So the minute the line's gone, the chicken's like, dong! Really weird. I heard someone say Himalaya mountains today. Wait, where does it say that? Do sunfish still have both their eyes on one side of their head? Huh. Sunfish. Sunfish weigh 2,000 pounds. It's a range between 6 and 10 feet. It's a big fish. 2,000 pounds. Five species. See, there was just one originally. There was just this mola thing. All right, so that was the original one, mola. Sharp-tail mola. Interesting. I never saw that one yet. It's new. All right, we've got this speckled thing. I have not seen that one. Definitely have not seen slender one. Check that out. Smallish sunfish, never growing more than a meter. Okay, hoodwinker. Okay, that's another slender. All right, let's look up the eyes here. Their visual acuity is far greater than many other ocean predators. Their vision is 2100, which means that what a human could see clearly, they need to be 20 meters away from to focus on. Not bad considering they have a brain weighing less than 6 grams. I'm not seeing anything about the eyes. Now, halibut had their... 2 eyes on one side, I think it was. That's the flatfish, I think. Isn't halibut it? Halibut's that flatfish, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's them. They lay on their side. Yeah, there it is. Halibut have the 2 eyes on one side. I did have halibut in my old timeline, and they were the weird fish that their one eye would go around the other side as they aged. I have not heard of that on mola, though. Sunfish eyes. So I don't know if there's a confusion with the halibut. What's weird is the eyes are opposite sides of the head, so usually predators don't have that. Usually predators have the eyes up more in the front for the perspective, so it's kind of interesting. Okay, I'm not seeing anything about the eyes on the same side. The thing with the sunfish, they don't, halibut lay down, and that's why they say the eyes move the other side, because they like to lay flat. But I have not seen that with sunfish, so I don't think they do that, at least not in current timeline. Sunfish would have one eye on each side of their heads at first, but as they age, they go to the bottom of the seafloor and spend so much time that one eye would move. That just sounds exactly like halibut to me. So maybe sunfish were like halibut when they first showed up. I did not see that part of it, though. Supposedly sunfish get... I saw it on a documentary. It had a book. Yeah, you don't know if it's still true or not. Yeah, I know. The thing is, when a thing first shows, that it often is kind of similar to existing things, and then it slowly diverges. So we were used to halibut and flounders, so I wouldn't be surprised if they were like that at first, and you wouldn't question it. It's like, oh, just a new species of flounder, like creature called a mola, no big deal. But, all right, cover whipworms. Now I'm afraid to look. Whipworms. I think, isn't that thing dogs can get? Human whipworm. I've heard of those, though. I've heard of whipworms for the past like 10 or 15 years. They're gross, but I do remember dogs sometimes need to be treated for whipworms. So I don't think those are new to me, unless there's something new and creepy about them. Curiouser and Curiouser has been demonetized and says they'll be taking a break. I wonder what the reasoning for that was. I'm just... Was it copyright things, or what was the supposed excuse for, yeah, she just... Curiouser and Curiouser usually just use photos, actually. I don't remember her... Well, I don't know. I haven't done any videos on Dolores Cannon. I have mentioned her. She's got plenty of videos up, so if anybody wants to check it out. She basically describes the Emmy. It was many years ago when she started talking about it. She was actually, I think, supposedly passed away before the Emmy even became popular. But basically, a lot of what she talks about describes Emmy stuff, and she says that this time, like right when she was passing away, she was saying it was the beginning of like a transition to a new era where people would be split according to kind of the negative, mean people and the nicer people. And the mean people would either die or pass away to kind of like the mean earth, and the nice people would go to the nice earth, and the new earths would reflect the minds of the people in them. But she said it would be, a lot of confusion while that was going on. So I don't think it really contradicts so much. I think that in many ways it parallels kind of Bible stuff, because basically you have a splitting of people going to a good place and a bad place. There's kind of a judgment kind of thing, that kind of deal. So I don't know. Another one that really talks about timeline stuff, very similar to Dolores Cannon, was the Seth Speaks ones. Also very similar. And I had read that stuff before, and I have to say I'd never really put that much stock in this whole switching timelines thing. I'd actually read about it, and I never really expected to actually experience any of it, I have to say. But there are quite a number of parts in the Seth books that basically totally describe the Mandela effect. And now I give those books a lot more credence because they basically describe the ME in many ways. Many ways. And Seth also talks a little about like the coming of a new era, but not in the same way that Dolores does. I mean, he does. They don't really talk about it a ton. So I never really got over Easter Island and the huge heads being uncovered for a couple hundred years and then not dying out from cutting all the trees down. Yep. I know, and they didn't die out. Okay, so where are we? Chickens. All right, camels apparently are more buffed than the old days. I'm quite sure that although camels are strong creatures, I do not think they were capable of this in the old timeline. Do not mess with a camel in the current timeline. Seriously. So these guys are messing with a camel, basically. This guy's going to get it. He bites his head and he throws him. This camel just threw him like a freaking, look at that. I really hope that I do not get a copyright strike from that because it was really interesting. But yeah, camels can basically just chomp your head and fling you across the room now. Do not mess with camels in this timeline. Apparently, some starfish don't form right. This is kind of neat. They're just neat looking. It's supposed to look like this, but sometimes they just become square. These are already weird enough, but apparently there's square starfish. And they survive just fine. Starfish are kind of basically immortal anyway unless something eats them. So, or I guess they could run out of food, but... Oh, and there's that starfish disease that they could get. But anyway, this one's nearly square. This one's kind of weird because I swear the last time I looked at it, it was more square than that. That it was... I don't know, there's something happened. Another thing... There was a shift between last night to this morning. All right. Doc Martens shoes. This is my original spelling. We're now back to my original spelling. Doc Martens, Dr. Martens. It was like the animal, a marten. And that's how I call it, Martens. For a long time then, it was switched to Martins, Martins. And somebody started talking about this on Retcon last night. And I double-checked to make sure it was still I, because it had been I for some time. And when I check something, I type in the thing I think is wrong and see what comes up. So, like, if I think it's Martins is wrong, I'll type in just to make sure. And sure enough, it corrects me. Google corrects me to Martins. All right, so... last night I typed in Martens and Google corrected me to Martins. And then somebody made a comment on one of my comments this morning. I looked at it. It didn't make sense. And I'm like, what? You've got it backwards. So I double checked it and it's Martens now. So it just changed from last night to this morning for me. That it went from INS to ENS over the course of maybe 12 to 15 hours. The thing that they were actually talking about, though, was not the Martens. They were talking about airware being spelled now. Let's get it over here. See, I remember it, airware, AIRWEAR. Most of the stuff in my old timeline was spelled properly. In this timeline, they like to spell things goofy. And so let's see if I can find a logo of that. Airware. I know you can't find it. But basically it is spelled. See if I can remember how to do it. WAIR now. Let me just go on Doc Martens and see if I can find it. Print. I was actually shopping for these, not print. What the heck is wrong with me? Find. Where's find? Find. Darn it. All right, here. Doc Martens Air Wear. I'll do it on Amazon. Dang, I can't even find the... But anyway, if you look at it, it's all Doc Martens AIRWAIR. Here. Okay, this one has it. Airwear in this timeline. I've never seen the spelling before until yesterday when someone pointed it out. I was actually looking up Doc Martens last year, and that's when I noticed the I, but other people were talking about it then also. So people on Redcon actually went to their shoes and checked them. Sure enough, their shoes in their closets now say WAIR. So that's the other one. But I say also that it's a flip-flop now, for me anyway, that it's back to the ENS. Oh, yeah, the camels with the fangs. Yeah, they get the fangs, and now they can pick you up by your head and throw you across the room. Do not mess with the camels. Oh, and they do that whole weird peeing thing and all this grossness. They're just nasty little things now. All right. All right, where are we at now? Square fit, okay. Ah ha 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 ha. This one I've been watching for a while. All right, the sun having once been yellow and now white. That is an old ME. All right, but one thing I've been watching is what did they call our sun? So originally it was a yellow dwarf star was our sun. For a while, it was a white dwarf. Now, in the current timeline, a white dwarf is something that's way bigger than our sun. But for a while, they were calling it a white dwarf. So I'm like, okay, the sun color changed and it's white and they're calling him a white dwarf. So they had shifted around all the definitions of what the suns are, And then it became a yellow dwarf again. As far as I could tell, it was a yellow dwarf. But now it's just called a dwarf. And yellow is incorrect, but you'll find yellow dwarf all over the place still. But they're saying that, it's actually not yellow dwarf. That's just an old mistake that's propagated somehow. But the weird thing here is, all right, what color is the sun actually? Is it yellow? Is it white? It used to be a yellow dwarf because it emitted primarily yellow light. That was the story. And that was I should have pulled this one up earlier. All right, I think this is the one I wanted. All right, what color is the sun? Everyone knows the sun is yellow, right? It's right there in the sky. You just have to look to know this. Okay, don't really look at the sun. Well, not so fast. It turns out that there are many absolutely correct, absolutely different answers. This is interesting, too, because the sun doesn't look yellow anymore, but they still have it in here. If you look at the sun, I don't think that right now you'd go, oh, it's yellow. So they're basically arguing now that the sun's the sun puts out so much light that it saturates all our color receptors. So to us, the light looks white because all the receptors are maxed out and they can't tell the difference between what the sun color, the predominant sun color they're saying right now is 50 nm. And I don't know what that nanometers or I don't know what that nm stands for. But they're saying that that corresponds with blue green, that the sun is actually a blue green sun. Let's see if I can find it. Blah, blah. It emits most of its energy about 500 nm, which is close to the blue green light. So one might say the sun is blue green. The maximum radiation is governed by the sun's surface temperature, about 5,800 Kelvin. A higher surface temperature result in maximum wavelength in our sun might peak at the blue or violet part of the spectrum. Lower in our sun might peak in the yellow or orange. Okay, that's interesting because we remember it. I remember it as being primarily yellow light, and that would be according to this, it would be a lower surface temperature. Now we do also, a lot of us remember the sun being less bright. So, interesting. But this is physics, not perception. So then they go on to say that, but the sun's light has to filter through the atmosphere, blah, blah, blah. Then there's the limits of your own eye receptors. All that stuff plays a role. But basically, somewhere in there, I'm not sure if it was this article, but they're basically saying our sun is now a dwarf sun, not a yellow dwarf, that its actually main light source is the most predominant light it emits is blue-green. So, I mean, if we're on another planet far away, does our sun look blue-green twinkly? They don't really go into that, and I did not find much info on that. But I do wonder now that, if the so-called story is that it's blue-green. So this is another one of those where I'm like, I'm really suspicious this isn't just NASA lying, because why say it's a yellow dwarf? No, wait, it's a white dwarf. No, it's a dwarf. It's yellow, no, it's blue-green. I mean, if you're lying, you're not going to be that inconsistent in your lies. So I think this has to be ME. All right, so anyway. A lot of people get burned by the sun very easily now. I don't. I get burned less now. It hurts my eyes more. It's definitely brighter and glarier, but I do not get burnt by the sun as easily as I used to. We have different bodies now, so even if the sun is brighter, we could be adapted. Maybe I just have more Italian blood DNA in this timeline. I don't know. But I definitely do not burn as easily as I used to. Crosshatches in Argenerica, Skookum, Silver E55. The moon is super bright sometimes. Yes, like all times. Way brighter than I ever remember it. Plus, it's got that weird rainbow halo around it a lot now. For me, anyway. My other children and I don't get burnt. Still, we just get tan. Well, if you have the darker skin, I think it's harder for you to burn. Although they say you can, but that extra melanin does help out. Luckily, I have the Italian blood, so even though I'm fairly pasty faced, I can tan. It's not like some of the English. They just come from a genetics that there's not much sun, so. Yeah, the sun definitely hurts my eyes more. Definitely. Like it used to be, if you were walking and the sun was right there, you wouldn't really be like, I can't see. But now if it's anywhere in kind of in your vision, it's like, you just want to look away. All right, so got that. So we basically have a blue-green sun now. It's not a yellow dwarf. It's not a white dwarf. It's a dwarf that's blue-green. All right, what's that goofy thing on the thumbnail? I know you guys were asking. This is another big old ME for me. That is a planetary nebula. Now, I've been seeing a lot of really cool nebulas in the last 5 years. It's definitely gotten all psycho as far as all of these are supposedly nebulas. But here's the big kicker for me. When I first heard of planetary nebulas, there was just a few of them. And they had pretty colors. All these ones we see now, I had not seen. But planetary nebulas were made out of freaking planets in my timeline originally. It was, they had some interesting gases kind of spread around the little nebula, mixed in with the planets. And so it was a planetary nebula with some colors and cool. And all those little spots were like planets. Okay, well, look at some of these planetary nebulas now. There's so many of them. There's so many weird shapes. So a lot of these don't. It's hard for me to even say it, but so they're basically saying that planetary nebulas are not planets at all. They are just dying large stars. When a large star dies, it turns into one of these planetary nebulas. And why is it called a planetary nebula? Well, they're saying way back, before there was any good information, one person thought it looked kind of like a planet, and so he called it a planetary nebula, and it's stuck ever since, and nobody ever fixed it. That's horse hockey, as far as I'm concerned. They were nebulas of stars in my old timeline, and planets and stuff, and bodies. They weren't one star that died, but now they are. Interestingly, there's a bunch of flip-flops because they're saying that the Earth is right on the edge of being, not the Earth, the sun, our sun, Sol, is right on the edge of being big enough to be a planetary nebula when it dies. And then there's this whole, right on the edge, just one of them coincidences. And there's all this debate whether it'll become a planetary nebula or not. And they're like, new data suggests it will. No, wait, new data suggests it won't. It's like it's all an excuse to just talk about the fact that a star becomes a planetary nebula. It didn't. When I thought, yeah, nebulas were stars. Now they're just, planetary nebulas were batches of stars and planets and stuff for me. They weren't one star that died. They called it planetary nebulas because it was full of planets and stars. Sucks to be fair-skinned. It does if you don't tan. I don't have to worry about it too much because I'll tan. I mean, I can't go out and just, the first hide inside all winter and then go out there and sit out there for 10 hours. I mean, that I'll get burned, But generally, it's been a long time since I've had a nasty sunburn. And when I do, it's just usually a tad on the back of the neck, and that's it. Or any sort of gas clouds in space, nebulas. Nebula. It's a cloud of dust and gas. Some nebula come from gas and dust thrown out by a dying star. So there's never any planets or stars in them, I guess. That's a good question, though. Yeah, they're just saying it's a batch of gas. Five types of nebula. Let's see what they are. Huh. Learn how nebulas are. Okay. Well, anyway, they were planetary nebulas are named after that because it was planets for me. Planets and stars. Far, far away. All right, next one. All right, I've had some of this on before, but this is a better example of it. All right, so I've talked about in the past, it was pretty long time ago, there was these weird clouds that would just drop rain in one spot. I had a little bit of video of it, but it really didn't, it was dark in the video and you couldn't really tell. You couldn't prove anybody was maybe had a hose or something. It didn't look like it, but this basically shows it a lot better. I mean, unless it's some kind of really good CGI. Basically, this cloud is apparently dropping it just on this car. Very, very short clip. I guess it could be CGI, but I've seen a lot of these before, and I've looked these up, and supposedly it can really happen like that. That it just drops in just a couple foot space. These, like, it's just like something out of a cartoon where it only rains on one person or one car and nowhere else. But this one you can really see, like, they pan all the way up and stuff. I don't know. Just weird. Two of my kids got so sunburned that they get blisters after less than 30 minutes. Huh, that's weird. Maybe you've lost some of your sun immunity and I've gained some. I mean, genetics are all different, so it may be that your genetics have shifted or what genes are more predominant. Because with the darker skin, I would have thought that you guys are somewhat protected. But, it also probably depends on where you're located. I think North America has gone further towards the poles. The sun is not as high in the sky. So maybe the reason I'm not getting sunburned is just that I'm not getting as direct a sun as I used to because of my location. I mean, it might be that if I go back to the equator, I'll burn like a piece of toast or something if I go out there. I don't know. But, I have been complaining that the sun doesn't get high anymore. So that might be why, maybe the sun is brighter, but it's the angle is greater. So yeah, actually, I just kind of thought of that, but that could explain why some people burn more. If you're right on the equator and the sun's hotter, you could burn easily. If I'm in the north and I got pushed further north and I have less direct sun, I could burn less. But, then there's the genetics. Maybe my Italian bloodline is more predominant in my current genetics. I don't know. All right. All right, this is more DNA stuff. Okay, I believe this is the correct one here. All right, so they've got this kind of sheep that has like this big weird muscle butt. It's a very weird looking kind of sheep. So what's interesting about this is I was kind of looking it up. And so this is all muscle. It's not flab. And I've definitely had on before some weird animals now that have like weird DNA where they're double muscle. They at first it was just a couple, like a dog that had it. It was a rare genetic mutation. Then there was the whole breed of cow has it, that are huge. So now these sheep have it. But what is weird is I learned some new genetics because of this thing. Let's see, what do I want to look up here to get to that? All right, hold on. I also want to mention there's just this timeline is just has a thing for big butts. I swear, it's just like so many animals have it, stars have it. It just seems to be a thing for this timeline. So now the sheep, so they have to say genetic mutation explains beautiful buttocks in sheep. I mean, it's not really what I would think of when I looked at a sheep. I would just say they look weirder than any all get out. I wouldn't be saying they look beautiful. All right, so here's what's weird about this mutation is apparently, let's see, we had to get it from, you can only have one copy of the gene. This is the only disease I'd ever heard of this being the case. Normally, like if you have two copies of the gene, you'll have a disease the worst. If you have one copy of the gene and one copy not, you'd either have a mild form or none. And if you had no copies, you have none. So it was always one copy of the gene would be either mild form or none. Some diseases, if you no copies of a normal gene was two copies of a weird gene, then you could have like say albinoism. But this one, let me see if I can find that part where they say it. Caliphate is an example of genomic imprinting. Imprinted genes are regulated differently in the body depending on which parent they are inherited from. I have never freaking heard of this imprinted genes thing. So basically they're saying that if you have two copies of a gene, somehow each copy is imprinted by whether the mother or the father donated that gene. And those genes are treated differently depending on the mother, if the mother or the father were the donors of that gene. I have never heard of that before. So in these sheep, if you'd imprinted gene inherited from the father may be silent while the copy of the mother is active, often imprinted genes are turned on during specific periods of development. So they're basically saying that genes will have preference according to their imprinting. Imprinted genes are associated with forms of mental retardation and developmental disorders. Cells have two copies of most genes, and the second copy can usually serve as a replacement. But if something goes wrong with one copy of an imprinted gene, the second copy may not be a replacement. I have never heard of that. Okay, so they're saying that this let me see if I can. I think it was the father. It had to get it from the father, but the mother. It had to have the gene from the father, but the mother had to not donate a gene. If it had two copies, it would not get this big butt disease. The trait only occurs in lambs that inherit the caliphage mutation from the father. The gene from the mother must be normal. Lambs born with two copies of the mutation appear normal. This effect is known as polar overdominance. I have never heard of that either. So it has to do with this imprinting. So basically they're saying you have to get one copy from the father, but no copies from the mother. If you have two copies, it won't work. If you have zero copies, it won't work because of this imprinting thing. I have never heard of it. So we've got the gene imprinting now and then the polar overdominance. Those are both totally new ideas for me. I've never heard of any diseases with this polar overdominance thing. Kardashian sheep. Yeah, you know what? The big butts thing is just I'm just seeing all kinds of animals and stuff. I think it's just really a trend for this timeline. Yeah, now I'm starting to wonder if I go to the equator, am I going to burn like toast? I better really bring my sunscreen. Because if I'm getting softened up because I'm far from the equator, it might hit double hard when I go to the equator. So anyway, part of my big rant was about the planetary nebulas. Is just another thing where, like, if this was just NASA lying, I mean, why just keep changing your definition of things? It would just be the stupidest thing you possibly could do. How does something that was a whole nebula of planets and stars now become just one star? I mean, you can't even be that confused looking through the telescope, I don't think. Scott Harris is going to do ME on his one man ghost hunting channel, and his main channel is going to be video games. Yeah, I wish him luck. There's so many people doing video games. It's really hard to making a living on YouTube. It really is. And there's so many people doing video games. It's just because this whole generation is a bunch of this new millennials and stuff. They're all video game addicts. So all these 15-year-olds are sitting around doing video game channels. It's just really hard competition. I mean, I definitely wish him well, but I just think that and the payback from YouTube just gets less and less too. I mean, I really think he might be better off just like selling video game paraphernalia and stuff than trying to make money on it. Yeah, see, why did they call it beautiful buttocks for those sheep? I mean, it's just making you think weird things. The choice is weird. The four-legged tribes of Australia. I remember that one tribe, they said they had some kind of balance mental issue, and then they would walk on arms and legs. That's one of the things that the new body is very good at. Rope village where people walk on all fours. Yeah, that I've seen this one. I've covered this one before. It used to be a lot harder to walk on all fours. I've noticed that it's a lot easier now. Like 10 years ago, it was just very awkward the way the hips were, and it just took a bunch of freaking work. And now it's fairly comfortable to walk like this. I actually tested this out when I saw this. So supposedly they have some kind of a problem with their brain where they can't balance properly, so they walk on all fours. I've had this one on. I mean, I haven't checked the story lately to see if it's the same, but it was definitely this kind of video and stuff. I'll play a little snippet of it here. See, they have balance issues even on all fours. They're not walking as smoothly as you would if you were on all fours. But yeah, I heard about those about a year ago, maybe. I did a video on it, so it can't be a whole year. I don't think I've been doing videos for a whole year yet. Can anyone else see your teeth coming through the tops of their gums when you lift up your lips? I have noticed that the skulls themselves, this is something I've commented on before. I'll have to check on what you said, but let's see if I can find. This one is a fake one, but it really shows it. These lines here, like these indents over the teeth, my old skull did not have anything like that way back. It's really accentuated in these fake skulls, but the real skulls have it. Let me just type in real here. I don't know if you can see it because my video quality isn't that good, but there's lines here now. You can kind of see, I don't know, the skull just doesn't encompass the tooth roots nearly as good as it used to for me. And it's kind of weirdly bumpy there. Like old lady wrinkles or something. That was not in my old skull. Ugh, that one's this one shows it pretty good. You can kind of see it. I don't know if my video is clear enough, but you can see those ridges. So that might be part of it. I don't know. Anyway, I'll check and see if I can see my teeth. What was the exact sentence? See their teeth coming through the tops of their gums. Yeah, I'm wondering if you're just seeing weird bumps because the skull has those weird bumps now. So it might be really the ridges in your skull. In some villages, people never actually learn to walk. I think it was just this certain people in this one village, supposedly due to inbreeding. Some of them had like a mental disorder where they didn't have proper balance skills and they had to walk on all fours. And they all walked on all fours. That's the storyline. Not that they all do it on purpose, and it's not even that they all do it. It's just a certain percentage. But it's an ME. I've never heard of it until like last year or so. Catching a bit behind, but I'm catching up to you on 2x speed. Yeah, that actually I do sometimes watch videos you can set YouTube to have 1.5 times speed or 2 times speed. Then especially for live streams, you can kind of blast through it more. Have you heard of ground ozone in your research? Nope. Let's see what that is. The whole ozone layer thing is interesting because we're all supposed to die because the ozone could not be repaired and blah, blah, blah. Suddenly the ozone did get repaired and we didn't all die and everything's fine and nobody really worries about ozone. 3 atoms of oxygen. Ozone occurs both in their upper atmosphere and at ground level. No. That's an ME. They used to say it was the radiation from the sun that caused ozone and it had to be up on the upper atmosphere where the sun hit and blah, blah. Good ozone occurs naturally in the upper atmosphere where it forms protective layer. This beneficial ozone has been partially destroyed by man-made chemicals. Ozone at the ground level is a harmful air pollutant caused by effects on people is the main ingredient in smog. So main ingredient smog? I've not heard of that. Oh, that's interesting. How does ground level ozone form? Directly into the air, but it's created by chemical reactions between nitrogen and volatile, VOCs. This happens when pollutants emitted by cars, blah, 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 and other sources chemically react in presence of sunlight. Ozone is much likely to reach unhealthy level. That's weird because that kind of is opposite because they used to say that pollutants were destroying the ozone. Now they're saying pollutants are causing ozone to be formed at ground level and that ozone is making smog. Yeah, that's just weird. Weird. So the primary ingredient of smog is ozone now? There's a new one. Ozone smog. New England. Ground level ozone smog information. Ground level ozone presents a serious air quality problem. Huh. All right, whatever. Yeah. It's just another one of those whatever reality you win. have it your way. Anyway, I'm not worrying about it. It's just too stupid after a while. People's faces around their lips more like Simpson's face. More room between the lips and the nose. More room between the lips and the nose. Yeah, it does kind of look like. I think faces are longer, so that could explain some of it. Put the hair there to hide it, but yeah, I think faces have gotten longer. I think top of the head is definitely more dome-like than it used to be. Whoop, that's not what I wanted to do. World is simulation controlled by your mind. Yep, could well be. Now we supposedly have only 12 years left to live on Earth, according to Ocasio-Cortez, Justin Bieber, blah, 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 whatever. There's always something that's going to end the world. I don't think the Republicans or the Democrats have cornered the market on the doom and gloom, though. They all just have their own version of it. Okay, I covered that. All right, I just have one more thing. Kind of a small one. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but somebody I know about a year ago got a flu shot, and then her shoulder hurt for like a year. Now, the old story was that she went to the doctor and complained about it, and it started hurting immediately, and the doctor didn't know anything, and he didn't think it was related to the shot, but she swears it happened right after the shot, and it hurt right where the shot was, and she didn't injure herself in any other way, and it had to be the shot, but the doctor said, no, it's not the shot. Okay, there was been a shift with her whole medical history. I talked about that, I think, last week. But also, one of the things I heard this week was that now it's always been known that the reason her arm hurt was because the shot was administered incorrectly. And that is something new in her medical history. Head spinning around, trying to keep up with this stuff. But so basically, they're saying that if you don't hit right on the right part of the muscle, if you hit too high, then it can cause bursitis and all these other pains and problems and shoulder damage and unintentional injection of a vaccine antigen into tissues and structures underlying the deltoid muscle or trauma from the needle into and around the underlying bursa. After a vaccine injection, some patients may experience severe persistent shoulder pain and prolonged restriction of function thought to occur as a result of inflammation reaction. So yeah, that's what happened to her basically. But the doctor said it. In my old timeline, the doctor had no idea. Well, in this timeline, it was always this. So if you look at that, let's see, deltoid muscle. I've covered the changes in the muscles quite a bit. I've covered some of the changes in the, see if I can find a good image of it. Changes in the way the attachment. Okay, here we go. This is a pretty good one if you look at big enough. So if you look at the muscle now, there is this scapula bone part that wraps around towards the front and attaches over here. The deltoid now fans out quite a bit. It used to just be one distinct muscle. I didn't have these fan out muscles. It attaches all along the top. So the whole structure of the deltoid's different. And I believe that it has gotten lower because there's all these weird neck muscles now. And if you look at the bodybuilders, they have these giant, I'll just type it in. They have these giant freaking muscles. I've talked about that before. I don't remember. Like this guy's a classic example. What's that? Um, so it seems like the whole shoulder is kind of pushed down, and you have these giant neck flaps. They look like they're freaking. Um, they look like snakes or something with these neck flaps. I just did not have that at any bodybuilders in my old timeline. They look totally weird to me. But I think that the deltoid is pushed down, it's fanned across. If people are just stabbing that vaccine in their old timeline, then they're going to be hitting it higher up here, and I think that you're going to increase the chance of this happening. I think it's a lot easier now to nail the wrong spot, basically. So I wonder if that is why, because this deltoid now it's just a different shape. It used to be like a big bunchy area. It was easy to get, but now it all fans out. I just can't get used to that. And this line here, I can't get used to this weird bulge on the side of men now. To me, that it looks like a love handle, but it's not, because it's muscle. But in the old timeline, if you had a big bulge there, it was always flab. So that's why it just looks wrong to me. And the muscle goes way up higher. The breasts are higher and smaller than they used to be and more defined. I noticed that men, their breasts are, their chest region is really looking like more like a woman's. In some ways, it used to kind of feed back down into here, but it just looks weird. They're so much more veiny now than they used to be. Men never used to be able to get that veiny. A lot of it they're blaming on steroids, but people took the same steroids in my own timeline, and they did not get all veiny like that. So I don't know. There's just a lot of weird stuff. So I'm kind of wondering if basically, her screwed up injection might have been just an old timeliner, not knowing where to poke the needle. I mean, you poke the needle the same place for 5-10 years in a row, and then suddenly the muscle changes. You probably didn't get the memo. I don't believe the whole 1 year's left thing, but that's what they're. Justin Bieber and others have a music video. All right. Bieber. All right, Bieber. Years to live. Let's see, what's this baloney? Trouble is they're getting all this stuff in your mind, that can affect the timelines, possibly. Ariana, let's see. 12 years. Oh, okay. I think this is another one of those climate scare fear porns. If we don't fix everything in 12 years, then it'll be too late. The thing is, like 20 years ago, I heard that if we don't fix everything in the next 10 years, 5 years, or 10 seconds, it'll be too late. And now it's 20 years later. We've got a whole another 12 years, apparently. So it looks like that might be what they're saying. We've got 12 years. From a conserving nature perspective, in the next 12 years, the damage is irreversible and we're screwed if we don't completely redefine how we do everything on Earth. Whatever. I'm not really worried about it anymore. I used to worry about that stuff, but I've seen so many of those deadlines come and go, and then there's always another 5, 10, 15 years. So now I don't think so. Not with the ME, because things will just change. They can just change like magic. You have to shoot it lower. Yeah, I think so, because the the attachment point of the deltoid now, I think, is a lot lower than it used to be. So you used to be able to shoot it high like that and get away with it, but now you're shooting it right where it attaches and you're hitting the bursa. Those guys need to get in a fight with Popeye. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. The musculature. I mean, the muscles on the women bodybuilders are like the size that the muscles used to be on the male bodybuilders. How are women's breasts different now? I didn't notice this one, but Mandela Affected thought that they hang out to the side more, and I think that is probably correct. It's not like I spend a lot of time looking at that stuff, but guys do, and it does look like that on me, that they're more out. All right, anyways, I am about done. I've got all of mine finished. I like the big veins, though I don't know why, but I think big bulging veins in men is hot. Well, you will like the new timeline because it just seems like we're getting more and more of that. Just there's just so much of it. I don't even want to say it, but you definitely could do a Google on it. The muscles high and the abs look weird. Yes, yes. It just reminds me of this character on an anime. It was Dragon Ball Z, that green guy that was the big enemy that was really hard to destroy. Weirdly, I look back at him now and he looks different, but I remember him having it like the ab muscles, having a few extra of them up, like instead of a 6-pack, he had like a 12-pack and it went way up and it was kind of like really alien looking because he had the same muscles but like more of them. And now it's like humans look like that. But what's weird is if you look at that guy, I went and looked last year, and that character does not have that kind of muscles anymore. But that bulge is unattractive. Yeah, I don't like that love handle bulge muscle thingy. I just that's one thing I'm having trouble getting used to. Most of the rest I can handle, but I never really liked like the huge monster bodybuilders. I just think they look freaky. And now even more so because they're just even way more inflated than ever. The ridge on the scapula is huge, so the attachment of the bone will look diff. Yeah, yeah. All right, anyway, it's getting late. That's why it's not a simulation in your own mind, because somebody is causing bad stuff to happen and it's not me. Um, the thing is, I don't think, I think the whole Earth is sort of a group simulation. Everybody contributes. But I suspect that your own life is mostly you. You contribute. So, I mean, in any situation through history, there's been times when the country was in a bad place, but you were fine. Um, like the recession in the, when was that, the 90s. Everybody was complaining about this and that and how they couldn't get a job, but I had a job and I was fine. I paid all my bills and I didn't really notice the recession. So I was fine, and everybody else, well, a lot of other people were complaining. There's always going to be, and then at the flip, that the economy could be doing great and you could be doing terrible. So your own reality, your own situation need not match at all what the majority are doing. So this world could, for all intensive purposes, mostly go to hell in a handbasket, and you could be completely fine. You might just happen to work in an industry that is not hurt. Like, for instance, when the really bad recession happened like 10 years ago, certain industries did really well, like the thrift stores and the bargain stores actually had an increase in sales. So if you worked in that industry, you were loving life. There was a couple other industries that just happened to be real trendy, and even though overall the economy was terrible, those industries sold a ton. So I suspect that you pretty much control your own life. And if you think negatively and this and that, I do think that affects what manifests around your life. But I do think that you don't have to assume that your life is going to go the way of the majority. It doesn't often. It doesn't have to at all. Even if politics is crazy and suicide rates are high and people are living immorally and lying a lot and just being jerks and spoiled and whiny and drama queens and all the things that they're doing, that doesn't mean that your life has to suck. And I think that's really important to consider. And if you look at the Bible, it says basically, I don't remember the exact terminology, but it basically says don't worry on that stuff. Just be a good person. Don't worry about what the rest of the world's doing, and you'll be all right. And I still think that that's the route to go. I mean, it even says it in the Bible. It says it, the spiritual, new agey people say it. The Bible says it. A whole bunch of people say it. So I think it's worth listening to. That's why I'm like anti-fear porn. I've seen fear porn since the 70s. We're all supposed to die from the acid rain and the ozone hole and the peak oil. We were going to run out of oil, all that. We didn't. So I'm not listening any. After the Emmy, I am so not listening to all that fear porn. Like they said, California was going to run out of water, and then suddenly we have this new source that we've managed to finagle. We always somehow everything's going to go to rack and ruin, and then magically a fix is found or was always there. Sean Allen got dimples in the new timeline. Interesting. Yeah, new face shape with the new bone structure. Miss Imaginary's off. Good night. All right. Human breast anatomy. All right. I'm going to look it up. Even though I do risk being not suitable for all audiences after this business. Doop, doop, doo. The sad part is I don't think I really knew what it was before. So I don't know if what? It's just not something I really studied. I don't remember all that business though. Interesting. Yeah, I can't say for sure on that one. I really can't. Just not something I really studied for. I wasn't planning to have children, so I didn't really care how the milk production worked, and I was just like, we need to practice focusing on the same things and try to affect some small changes like group exercises on one of these live streams. We talked about this on Retcon, and what always happens is people can't decide on what to change. There's like going to be 20 different versions of what to change, and then none of them can agree on one, and then the whole thing dies. So that's why I haven't done it, because I think it'll be the same thing. And it's weird, and maybe it's just meant to be that way, but certain things resonate with certain people, and then they don't resonate with others. And so you couldn't get, it's like herding goats or herding cats. They just, no, I'm going to do this one. No, I want to do that one. I mean, if you guys can come up with something in the comments that you agree on, we can definitely try it. But I'll be surprised if we can get any agreement. Let's make cats talk. Oh my God. Can you imagine if cats talk? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You may regret it. Cats. Cats and dogs will finally agree on one thing. They're hungry. Can we all make our ears ring? I don't know how you would notice because they all do already, pretty much. All right. Anyways, you guys can hash it out in comments, but I don't want to make the cats talk. That one might be a bit much. All right. I'm hitting it because it's almost 2 hours and I'm sleepy. Let's see if I can log out more effectively this time than last time. All right. So if this goes right, then this is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.